of the original Dellums Bill of 1971 was finally enacted as the Comprehensive Anti-Apartheid Act of 1986. In solidarity with the oppressed people of South Africa and in support of sanctions against the RSA, the International Longshoremen and Warehousemen Union, the 10th locale, downed their tools and refused to unload a cargo of South African goods, that is the auto parts and the wine, and hundreds of people took part in the 11-day-long boycott. And then came along the unbanning of liberation movements and the release of political prisoners in South Africa and the release of Nelson Mandela on February 11, 1990. Now let us trace then Madiba's feet, Madiba's steps. As I said, that him who seeketh findeth. And then 4 months after his release, and then Nelson Mandela, he deemed it appropriate to travel to the west coast of the United States, that is to Los Angeles and in the San Francisco Bay Area. And he went there to thank the anti-apartheid movement and gave a glowing praise to them for their stance and solidarity they had shown, not only to him, but to all the disenfranchised people in South Africa. When Madiba was in LA, that was on the 29th of June in 1990, he was warmly received by the first black mayor of Los Angeles, Thomas Bradley, the only mayor in the history of the United States to have spent 20 years in office. And he was also warmly welcomed by Gregory Peck. Most of you know him. He's a film actor who has since passed on. And Maxine Waters was also there. She's always been there in the trenches with the people of South Africa. And they welcomed Nelson Mandela and Winnie Mandela on the south lawn of the City Hall. From Mayor Bradley, on behalf of the people of Los Angeles and the council, Nelson Mandela received the key to the city of Los Angeles and the resolution welcome. And again, people from all walks of life, office bearers, film actors, the clergy, they form part of the crowd in excess of 70,000 people at the LA Coliseum. Now, Mandela's footsteps in the San Francisco Bay Area, Berkeley and Oakland, Madiba arrived and received a tumultuous welcome with a crowd of close to 100,000 at the Oakland's Coliseum on the 30th of June, 1990. His friends, the most vocal in the anti-apartheid movement, were all there. From Gus Newport, who later became the mayor of Berkeley, Lionel Wilson, who was the mayor of Oakland, Ron Dellums was also there, and Willie Brown, Speaker Brown, who sadly passed away in August of this year. And John George, who was the chair of the Bay Area Free South African Movement. And so there was Vukani Mawetu Choir, which sang liberation songs in Zulu, and they still do that to this date. Also present were the executive members of the International Longshoremen and Warehousemen, the 10th locale, and the executive members of a group of dedicated Berkeley-based Committee on South African Solidarity, COSAS, which again to this day, they still ship much needed school supplies to historically disadvantaged schools in South Africa. Madiba's message to the West Coast of the US was similar to the one he delivered in Los Angeles. He thanked all present at the stadium for their individual and collective roles, which they played into forcing the apartheid regime to surrendering. He thanked the ILWU Local 10 for refusing to offload the apartheid cargo on board a Dutch ship called Ned Lloyd. Madiba also praised the state of California for its stance on divestment. He encouraged all Californians to continue the fight against apartheid until it was totally eradicated and replaced by one man, one vote, the universal suffrage. This goodwill towards the South African state and its people has continued post Madiba's presidency from 1994 to 1999, but with less vigor from our side. There has been no high-profile visit by our leaders since then to return there with the intention to rekindle that kind of solidarity that existed and goodwill that still exists in that part of the world. I personally felt this when I crisscrossed the state of California during the celebrations of Madiba's 95th birthday in July 2013. Sadly, 6 months after that, he passed on. At Lemet Park, several hundreds of people assembled there. Congresswoman Maxine Waters and I ended cutting up a huge birthday cake in honor of our Madiba. I remember again the outpouring of love and admiration for South Africa when the icon of icons passed on in December 2013. All in all, I officiated in 11 memorial services, 6 of which were held in Los Angeles, and the rest in Sacramento. There was a single one. I was invited by Professor Boatamo Mosupe, who will be joining us again for another presentation on Friday. And in San Francisco, we had 2, and in Oakland, we had 1, and in Berkeley, we had 1. Now, the question is, how did Madiba use the principle expressed in that verse, Matthew 7, verse 8? For everyone that asketh, receiveth. In his lifetime and in his hereafter, Madiba always receiveth because he passionately asked. He would ask world leaders, philanthropists, big business, bankers, and oil barons to fund projects that were close to his heart. And he would receive it, whether it would be for a maths and science school of excellence in Eastern Cape, or the Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital, for which an organization called the Legacy of Hope Foundation had, by 2014, raised a whopping 58 million US dollars of the $100 million that was needed. You may also ask Professor Hal Walker, who's also participating after this short presentation of mine, and Betty Walker, Dr. Betty Walker, whom the late President Mandela asked to help the underprivileged and historically disadvantaged Black people in general and Black students in particular, with interventions in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education way back in 1997, and how they have responded and kept that promise to Madiba. Professor Hal Walker's contribution speaks volumes. He contributed to the project Apollo 11, which he told us about it yesterday, and today he will also. Enabled the late Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin to become the first and second man to walk on the face of the moon. The workers have been launching and running STEM projects in South Africa. These include a Gugulethu student whom the workers assisted in spending 2 weeks at the JPL, that's a Jet Propulsion Laboratory / NASA, on the Mars rover project. Their contributions are so immense and impactful. Madiba also asked Miss Oprah Winfrey for a world-class school to cater for young girls, and that was when Madiba receiveth again. The list goes on and on. Now, another question, how can Mangosuthu University of Technology benefit in its quest for global connections and exploit such goodwill that is out there? With the passing of the Comprehensive Anti-Apartheid Sanctions Bill, all American companies, financial banks, educational institutions, like the University of California family, and had heavily invested in the apartheid state and had to divest. The University of California family was not spared from picketing itself. The late Professors Mazisi Kunene, who ended up at the UKZN in his later life, and Professor Bernard Magubane were both at the UCLA, University California, Los Angeles campus, directing the struggle for social justice in South Africa from inside the university. Our leaders have been mute and have not been vocal enough to convince those, including the University of California, to return with their investments and to help rebuild the country's economy and educational system. During my stint as the Consul General of South Africa, I was often invited by the campuses of the University of California family in Los Angeles, in Irvine, in San Francisco, in Berkeley, as well as the California State University in Sacramento, Fresno University, and then also University of California at Dominguez Hills. It was in these campuses that I sensed this outpouring and existence of goodwill and willingness to form smart partnerships with institutions of higher learning in South Africa in terms of, among others, students and academic exchanges. It was in this regard that after a brief encounter with the senior management at MUT, I decided, that was in August, I can't remember whether August 19, Bali will help me with that. I decided to approach Professor Boatamo Moshupe of the California State University in Sacramento if the CSUS, that's the acronym, does have exchange programs or would warm up to the idea of having one with one of those historically disadvantaged and underfunded universities, institutions like the MUT. I told Professor Moshupe that I had no doubt that there was a genuine desire on the part of MUT to embark on such global ties. I'm so glad that she is participating in this international week at the MUT and that Professor Walker is also participating. Fortunately enough, Professor Boatamo Moshupe is coming down to South Africa. She is a South African, but she's been based for more than 3-4 decades, in the United States. But she's coming home in South Africa, and she told me that she will be around until January, and she's willing to engage with MUT ASAP. The overwhelming question we should be asking ourselves, not only as MUT, but the whole country as well, that Madiba received a key to the freedom of LA, and so did he in San Francisco Bay Area. And where are those keys? Somewhere we seem to have lost the keys ourselves by not utilizing the influence that our own Madiba had. Nelson Mandela still has the keys, even after his passing. I remember in 2014 when I was invited by the Los Angeles Coliseum Court of Honor to unveil a bronze plaque together with the South African-born Chinese-American billionaire, Dr. Patrick Soon Shiong, who recently contributed something like 3 billion rands when COVID struck South Africa. Before we could do it, before we could unveil the bronze plaque, a strong wind came and blew and almost unveiled the plaque. And I thought it was the spirit of Madiba asking South Africa why South Africa is not traversing on his footsteps. Now, I've chosen California. Why California? California has just edged out the United Kingdom and France from number 5 and number 6. It used to be number 8, the 8th biggest economy in the world, and now is safely tucked at number 5. It's the US outside, if at all you consider the state of California outside the union of 50 states, it would be the 5th. It's regarded as the 5th largest economy in the world after United States as a union, and China, and then Japan at number 3, and Germany at number 4. So that's where then my story ends. I wonder if at all there will be a Q&A session, and then I yield then to back to Aswai.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ndaba. I did warn our audience earlier on that many of the participants that we are bringing into these sessions are people who have walked this journey before us, in line with our Zulu expression, indlela ekuzwa baphambili. I think for my MUT colleagues and for our Vice Chancellor, Professor Ramkhale in particular, Mr. Ndaba has just laid a challenge at our doorstep. We need to continue to seek vigorously and form partnerships, but we also need to travel, to tell our stories, to seek these partnerships. I like the fact that he mentioned the key towards the end, because I thought that's an important lead to what we are about to do next. So as you know, if you are in someone's house, you need to be handed the key. Our founder is present in these sessions, and I'm going to ask Mr. Hlophe to conduct the protocols along with our Vice Chancellor, Professor Makasi Ramkhale. Mr. Hlophe, over to you.
Thank you, Azwi. Morning to everyone connected. My name is Peggy Hlophe, as Mr. Mufamadi has said. I'm not too sure if everyone. In our presence, we're going to welcome His Royal Highness, founder of the institution, Prince Buthelezi. We would like to inform His Royal Highness that the house he built as far back as 1979 is growing. His Royal Highness would have been aware that we are now firmly on our way to creating partnerships with the international community. Mr. Ndaba has given us a beautiful story of our firm relationship with the United States before and after apartheid. His Royal Highness will be joining us soon. And from here, we would like to give over to our Acting Vice Chancellor, Professor Ramkhale.
Thank you very much, Becky. I hope everyone can hear and see me. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, as Mr. Hlophe has indicated, we have in our midst the founder of our institution, Umntwana, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi Ndabezitha. It is a great honor to have you with us this morning. We are always heartened by how you always heed our calls. Today is the second day of our International Week. We are humbled by the goodwill from our many international partners who've showed an interest in helping us elevate this institution, which we established in 1979 with only 19 students, and today has over 14,000 students. We have begun the implementation of our strategy 2025. And just 2 weeks ago, our Senate approved the internationalization strategy, which has given us wings to take MUT globally. Can I get confirmation if Prince Buthelezi has managed to join us?
Prof, I'm informed that he's still connecting.
Oh yeah, I just saw a message that he is connecting. Maybe I should pause because this welcome message is meant for his ears.
Yes, I think let's pause for a few minutes to allow him to join.
Thank you very much. The princess just arrived.
Thank you very much, colleagues and participants. Our founder has just joined us. Prof. Ramkhale, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muhammad. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, we have just been joined by the founder of our institution, Umntwana, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. Ndabezit.
Thank you, sir.
It is indeed a great honor to have you with us this morning. We are really heartened by how you always hit our calls. Today is the second day of our international week. We are humbled by the goodwill of many of our international partners who have showed an interest in helping us to elevate this institution, which we established in 1979 with only 19 students. And today it has of 14,000 students. We have begun the implementation of our strategy 2025. And just 2 weeks ago, our Senate approved the internationalization strategy for the university. And so we've been given wings to take MUT global. You are here with us today as we celebrate those that went before us to open the doors and people. It would have been remiss of us not to include Professor Hoffer, the first American man to play a crucial role in the landing of Apollo 11. That act led to many opportunities for Africans to play leading roles in research and development and in technological innovation way back in 1969. In 1974, Ndabezitha took the baton a step further upon realizing that KwaZulu and the province of Natal did not have an institution of technology for Africans. You knocked at several doors to ensure the realization of your dream. That dream became successful and today stands as a source of pride among previously disadvantaged people of South Africa. We are grateful for that and would like to invite you to join with us as we move this dream across borders. We are with you in your steadfast belief that education liberates. Indeed, he who builds a school closes the doors of prison. Thank you, Ndabezitha, for your vision and for your continuous support for our institution. So we welcome you warmly to this event and to the company of the Hawkers and Mr. Cyril Ndaba, our former Consul General in California. Siyabonga, you're most welcome. I'll now hand over to the program director. I believe that the next presentation will be done by our distinguished guest, Professor Al Walker. Over to you, Mr. Muhammad.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Ramkhale. Our next speaker is Professor Hal Walker and Dr. Betty Walker. The Walkers don't need any introduction. They've joined us yesterday and they join us again this morning. We're very excited as a university and we are honored to have them share their work with us today at MUT. Over to you. Prof. Walker.
Okay, there we are. You okay now? I did. Did unmute our mic?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear us okay?
We can hear you okay, but a little volume would be better.
Okay, we can speak closer.
Can you see us?
Can you see us also? Because I've got my volume very high at this point, but we will speak louder. I'm just so my wife and I are so pleased to be a part of this celebration, and to see the prince just warms our hearts. We recently saw him in Durban, and it's just so lovely to see you again. Thank you for having us with you today.
Thank you.
I just want to start out by saying Apollo 11 gave us wings to fly into space and across the universe. This is what mankind learned from that great mission. And so I'm here to just let us understand and visualize again that that mission taught us the methods to be able to do this over 50 some years ago. Now we want to see the present population of students and learners in the world today understand that they can fly on those same wings that Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin used to reach the moon. And of course, my job there, was to be able to use a laser, the range to the moon, to actually make a measurement of the true distance between the Earth and the moon, to a revelation that had never been achieved prior to that, and also to become a historical event, because this was the first time an experiment was conducted in history with a hand-placed element on another planet in the universe. And so we're so proud to say that. But again, our purpose is to mention this is to say there's more to be done, there's more work to be done, and there's more adventures to have, and there's more science to learn, and there's more young people that'll have to get interested. And that's what our role is today. So with that, I'm going to now try to give my wife, Dr. Betty Walker, a chance to just greet the prince and say a few words. Betty.
Greetings. It's so good to see you again. And I would like for the technicians to show us so that I can tell we're seeing each other. Can Jay help us get this done? Can you see us, Prince?
Yes, we can see you, Dr. Walker.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We can also hear both of you loud and clear.
Okay, but we just don't see our pictures, so that's why we were wondering. But you see us. It's a pleasure to see you again and to be a part of this auspicious occasion, because you're right, education is the key. And that's what we're here to support. And we're glad to still be here to be a part of this wonderful session so that we can share the space society that we started in this area and see what we can do to get this moving in MUT. That's our goal. So we can have our own science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and space center right there at MUT. And Hal and I are committed to see that we get this done.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to take this opportunity now to run our quick presentation, if that's the time for that. If anyone can direct me on that, I'll run our presentation. Because I want for the people, our young people that are in the audience that maybe are not aware of the Apollo mission, to understand that this was a rocket called the Saturn V that took us to the moon. And I want to show them that picture and that story. So can I now move to that with some assistance from the technical team? What we're going to see now is a rocket that stands 110 meters high. It's the most powerful machine ever built by humans on the face of the earth. And one of the things I want us to understand is that this rocket not only was to be used to propel men from the Earth to the moon, but it was also their habitat for living, because that journey took 3 days there and 3 days back. 6 days they had to live in an environment strictly artificial, and so there was science and technology there we also want to bring to the attention. Now, we'll first start off by letting the rocket blast off for us.
Prof, we are we are unable to see your presentation on our side. You will need to share it.
And we arrived, that launch took place on July 16th, 1969. And the picture we're looking at today was on July 20th, 1969, 3 days later. There is Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walking on the surface of the moon. There is myself there, along on the left side of the picture, for operating a laser that was the most powerful laser in the world at that time. It may still be today, I'm not positive, but it put out a power of 1.2 gigawatts and a burst of energy that took place in 10 billionths of a second.
It's 10 times brighter.
And the moon, and this particular laser was 200 times brighter than the sun. And you might notice there a picture of it to the right at the bottom of the chart. This is the laser in operation. Now, one of the things we want to understand that's very important for us is that the technology of developing lasers, of developing the environmental suits, the reflector package that was placed on the moon were independent technologies and inventions that people had to create in order for this to do this. Neil Armstrong, of course, had the role of piloting the rocket to the moon and landing, but others had the great job of also preparing the instrumentation and the work that would get done while they were there. And I'm so proud to have been a part of that job. And again, to let people see that African people also participated in man's first venture to another place in the universe. We're right there also.
Prof and Dr. Walker, I'm
Yes.
sorry to do this to you. We can't see the presentation.
Oh, let me back up quickly. I'm sorry.
You will have to share it with us.
Oh, not to worry. We'll quickly get back to that.
Our tech person is calling you to help share.
Okay, thank you. We'll wait for his call. He's gonna call.
He didn't. We couldn't hear him. Get him back.
Oh, gosh.
He might still be on the line. See, the line's busy.
There's Jay. There's Jay. Hello, Jay. Yes.
All right. At the bottom, you'll see a red icon, and on the left of that icon, you'll see an up arrow.
Okay. Yes, there it is.
Okay, once you click on that up arrow, you'll see at the bottom all your files are listed. Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes,
Just click on the PowerPoint.
I did.
Is it opening up?
It's back to the top again.
Colleagues and distinguished guests, bear with us for
Are we ready to run again?
try to share the workers presentation. It's really important that we see
Can you
and just a moment.
Somebody's buzzing us.
Professor Walker is
Donovan, honey, Donovan.
bear with us for a second.
Okay, 1 second.
As we navigate, thank you so much.
Yeah, Prof,
Yes.
can you email it to me?
Oh, no. Come on, let's just put it on here. I don't see how we
where's
can
Donovan?
email this.
Talk
Let
to
me get
Donovan,
Donovan
please.
on the phone.
Okay.
Okay, here's Donovan. Yeah, we cannot get, they could not see the presentation.
Oh, that's strange. That's very strange.
Show to us.
Are you on pause at the moment?
No, we're here now.
We don't know what we're on, but there's the screen.
I've got
All
the,
right, I see.
I've got
Right,
the,
how do you have the, all right, I see that. All right, and the share screen right now, the share little button on the right, top
Yes.
right in the corner, do you see that?
yes,
Top right corner.
right
Share.
there.
Okay, share.
Box, audio checkbox,
Yes,
and then select the screen that becomes available to you in the selection.
Okay.
You should see a copy of that screen, which is
The big screen. There it is.
there it is. There it is there, I think.
Okay.
Oh,
Now.
gosh.
Now the thing is, if you are shared, you should around the screen. You see, the screen I'm looking at right now, all the way around the screen, there should be a red or green border, which I don't
Yes.
see right now. In other
Yes,
words,
there it
Yes.
is. Right here.
Yeah,
it
there it is. Yeah.
Yes.
Correct. It means that that's shared, so the audience should be able to.
So we can press on that now.
Just keep going. I hope that we're able to see that.
Yes. Did you see that, Prince?
Very well, thanks, Rume.
Okay. Great.
Okay, that was our, for going back to my story, This was the launch of Apollo 11 to the moon on July 16th, 1969. This is the mission that gave us wings to fly from the Earth to other places in the universe. Here we are on July 20th. I hope we can all see that now. That's July 20th. The astronauts have arrived at the moon.
Ask him, does he see that?
Can we see that okay? Is that available to us?
Prince, can you see that?
No,
Oh, he doesn't see that.
Oh,
I don't see it.
He doesn't see that.
I'm going to go back to the movie here.
He saw that. He saw that.
You can see that shot right here.
I cannot hear. I can't hear. She seems to be speaking.
He said, view it as a slideshow.
Okay.
As you know.
There he is there. Okay. This is now the astronauts on the moon.
Can you see that, Prince?
Can we see that?
Yes, I can. I can
Okay,
see.
good. Here we see Buzz Aldrin placing the mission instruments on the surface of the moon. Here's the moon lander behind him. Now I want to let everyone know that this particular lander was only a device able to fly from space. It could not fly on the Earth at all. It can only fly in space. So this device was able to take the astronauts from orbit around the moon to the surface of the moon. And of course, then they deployed to themselves to the ground. Now the mission on the surface took approximately 6 hours. And of course, I want us all to recognize that this habitat that they lived in, those spacesuits, allowed them to live for 6 hours on the surface of the moon after leaving their spaceship. Now over here is our reflector package on the ground.
Yes.
This reflector is about 24 inches square in size. And of course, I was firing this laser now from the Earth over 240,000 miles away to strike that reflector there on the surface. Now with that said, I want to point out that this was the first experiment ever done in history with an instrument placed on another planet by human hands.
All right.
Now I'll move on from there.
Okay.
One of the things that we want to do with our young people today is to start to give them a vision too of their future in space technology. So I'm going to show a little video now of our students here in Cape Town at the South African Space Society. Here's our promise to Madiba picture. Here's our students. The laboratory there, learning about electric propulsion, next generation space technology, but applied to Mars. We were building a vascular engine model. Here's what's driving this engine. Plasma of electrical power generated through gases. Thank you so much. Okay. I don't want to go back to the slide in the slideshow. Yeah. Okay. I think I concluded my presentation. If we can get back to the top now. Dr. Betty's now is going to give a few comments on her presentation about the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics area of our program.
Prince, I just want to go back to what Consul General Ndaba mentioned about the student that we trained from Later. What's that? We sent the student from Later to JPL NASA when she was 15 years old. She was selected out of 500 applicants from around the world. She has now gotten her degree in geology from the University of Western Cape. And we need to make a plan to have her come over to MUT because she should certainly be a motivator for young people to see what she's been able to do and be a part of MUT. So I want to support bringing her to MUT so that students see here is someone just like them who's now gone on to NASA. And she worked with the scientists on the Mars mission. And now here we are on Mars. So we have a resource right here that we have nurtured from 15 that we will bring into MUT. Nomatema
Okay, well, thank you so much. That'll be the end of our presentation. If there's any questions, we're open for that to hear them.
I want to make one final statement. I can take this opportunity as the wife. I want everyone to note this fact that Professor Walker was not the first American or the first African American. He was the first human being to fire that laser to the moon. And that laser ranging experiment, which he conducted after developing the laser himself, that Apollo 11 lunar ranging experiment was the first experiment in history using a hand-placed extraterrestrial instrument on another celestial body. So he has done something no one else has done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to Professor Walker and Dr. Walker. We truly are walking amongst giants. I wish there was a way of giving a virtual hand out of applause, if you like. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, technology was not on our side today. So for our participants and our guests, we'll share Dr. and Professor Walker's presentation and the video that they were playing. So up next is our founder, His Royal Highness Prince. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mufmadi, Director of Programs, Honorable Minister, Dr. Lindy Sisulu, Member of Parliament, Chancellor of the Mangosuthu University of Technology, Professor Hal Walker, Father of the Laser Telemetry and retired aerospace engineer, Professor Marcus Ramohale, our acting Vice Chancellor and Principal of MUT, Mr. Cyril Ndawa, our friend and former South African Consul General to the United States, Ms. Mbalim Kize, our chair of this session, and distinguished guests who are joining us online from various locations in the world. Let me begin by saying how wonderful to see Professor Walker and Dr. Betty Walker again, and how much I appreciate this opportunity to listen again to his reflections on the Apollo 11 mission when I met Professor Walker together with a remarkable wife, Dr. Burton Walker, in Durban 2 years ago, I was excited by their passion to see young South Africans provided with opportunities to excel in the field of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I felt I had met kindred spirits, for so much of my life's work has been focused on opening the horizons of young South Africans beyond the narrow confines dictated by poverty, ignorance, and lack of opportunity. My introduction to the Walkers came through that great son of South Africa, Mr. Cyril Ndaba, whom I met more than a decade ago when we were serving as South Africa's Deputy High Commissioner to the United Kingdom. He graciously met me and my delegation at Heathrow International Airport when I was traveling to Wales to take the salute from the Royal Welsh Regiment, whose predecessors had fought my great-grandfather's warriors in the Anglo-Zulu War of 1879. Professor Hal and Betty Walker happened to be staying at the same hotel as me in Durban in March 2019, and Ms. Ndaba took the opportunity to connect us, for which I'm very deeply grateful. The Walkers' work in our country is truly inspiring. As you have heard this morning, by the time they opened the first chapter of the National Space Society of the African continent in February 2018, they had already established computer literacy laboratories and STEM programs in a number of schools in South Africa townships. Now, we're indeed very privileged to have such a notable scientist take an interest in our youth. And I thank Ms. Ndaba for introducing them to KwaZulu-Natal. And I thank our Chancellor, Dr. Sisulu, for engaging with the Walkers on the idea of launching a second space society right here at MUT. And thanks for this great work with the Walkers that all of us have now involved. Now, more than anything, however, I thank the Walkers for investing their intellect and their energy into development of the next generation. As we listen to Professor Walker speaking about Apollo 11 moon landing, I was taken right back to that single moment in history. I remember that my youngest daughter, Angela, had recently been born. I wish I could paint a picture of our family gathered around the radio, listening with rapt attention as Neil Armstrong took the giant leap for mankind. But South Africa was a different country in 1969, and under the oppressive fists of apartheid, we were forcibly shut off from the rest of the world. While in America, man was going as far as he had ever been, in South Africa, the majority of citizens were barred from moving freely, even within their own country. So in July 1969, as the world celebrated the moon landing, Nelson Mandela was in prison, grieving the death of his eldest son. Mrs. Winnie Mandela had already been in custody for 2 months, despite no charges having been brought. Just 2 months previously, the banned African National Congress had held its first National Consultative Conference at Morogoro in Tanzania, where Mr. Oliver Tambo called on our country's youth to intensify the armed struggle. Despite being a member of the ANC, I had not attended the conference. My passports had been confiscated by the South African government 5 years earlier in retribution for visiting Mr. Mandela and his wife in London en route to the Anglican Congress, which I attended in Toronto, in Canada. In that, South Africa, everything was decided on the basis of one skin color, where you'd live, how much education you'd receive, and what jobs would be available to you, Black South Africans were afforded the least resources and placed in worse circumstances. When the Commonwealth Group of Eminent Persons visited South Africa in 1986, their report became an eloquent testimony to the truth and to the tragedy of the apartheid system. Quote, the homeland, the report read, are in reality rural slums, reservoirs of labor for the white areas where more than 4/5 of economic activity is located. We're reminded by ministers and white businessmen that there are worse slums in other parts of the world. Here in a first world and a third world, we're told, do not judge the third world by first world standards. Yet, this is to ignore the calculated creation and maintenance of these different worlds in one country, and the determination rather that the demands of the first world should be met at the expense of the third. There is an abysmal poverty elsewhere in the world, but nowhere is it institutionalized as in South Africa, and with as little prospect for its victims to escape the poverty trap. Indeed, education for Black South Africans was far from a priority of government. Indeed, government invested a paltry amount in educating and the oppressed majority. In part, this was based on the colonial mindset that it was not worth educating those who would never be more than just hewers of wood and drawers of water. But there was also the fundamental understanding by the regime that education breeds revolt against oppression. Throughout history, universities have been the seedbed of revolutions, as all of us know. It is on university campuses more than anywhere else that the foundations have been laid for massive shifts in thought, particularly around politics. This is why I became the chief minister of the Israel KwaZulu government. My foremost campaign was to provide equality education to our people. I was in a very difficult position, being a member of the ANC. At that time, the ANC mission in exile came out with the policy after the 1976 slaughter of our children by the police with bullets. They said, liberation now, education later. And I disagreed with them. So while we struggled towards the political freedom, I knew that we needed to empower who would inherit that liberated country so that they could administer it with skill and wisdom. I balked against the idea of burning our country down in the pursuit of liberation because I believe in protecting what was rightfully ours. A decade after Apollo 11 mission, the economic situation in our country was deteriorating as the campaign of economic sanctions and disinvestment really started to bite. As the ANC's mission in exile convinced investors to pull out of South Africa, industries closed shop and jobs were lost. Indeed, jobs were becoming few and far between. So, to further the campaign of ungovernability, our ANC mission in exile was calling on students to abandon their education and burn down their schools. Across South Africa, the cry, liberation now, education later, echoed through empty classrooms. As much as I had invested in seeing my country liberated, I could not embrace a strategy that weakened the economy, would inherit or compromise the future of our youth. My vision was to liberate our youth through education. Thus, in KwaZulu, we pushed for oppressed young South Africans to pursue education with fervor. Under the banner, Education for Liberation, Inkatha worked to see our country's youth equipped with tools of knowledge to leverage their own freedom. We're preparing them to become active, responsible citizens, economic advisors, and leaders in a liberated country. My commitment to education was well known. I served as a patron of the Learn Fund and chairperson of the American South African Study Educational Trust. I also serve as Chancellor of the University of Zululand, capping 22 successive years of graduates. I was in this capacity that I had the learning of our young children, and I was pained by their honest question. When I kept them, they would, and congratulated them, they would say to me, what is the use? Where there are jobs to be had? They said that to me. It pierced me hard. The simple truth was that a degree or diploma did not translate into work. If we were to liberate our youth through education, we needed a specific kind of education. We needed a tertiary institution that offered vocational training so that students could be equipped with the skills needed to get jobs, keep jobs, and create jobs. The difficulty was finding the resources to fulfill that vision. Fortunately, not every study of apartheid was successful. In the 70s, when apartheid did its utmost to keep the races apart and separate, I developed good friendships with men and women of all races based on our shared ideals for South Africa. One of such friendship was in the Oppenheimer family. They were liberals and had a tremendous desire to create social justice in our country. Mr. Harry Oppenheimer often invited my wife and I to dinner in Johannesburg. Afterwards, the women would retire to one corner of the room and the men to another, where over cigars we would inevitably talk politics. Our friendship enabled me to speak freely. That's when Mr. Oppenheimer asked me what business could do to support genuine liberation. I told him about the need to equip oppressed young South Africans with vocational skills. I presented the idea of a technicon that would enable graduates to take up jobs and create jobs, becoming entrepreneurs and giving their contribution to society and our liberation. Mr. Oppenheimer immediately caught the vision. As chairman of the Anglo-American and De Beers Group, Mr. Harry Oppenheimer had created the Chairman's Fund to channel resources towards the Oppenheimer's philanthropic initiatives. So through the Chairman's Fund, Mr. Oppenheimer has provided 5 million rand to build a tertiary institution that offered vocational training. That was in 1979, the Mangosuthu Technicon opened its doors in Umlazi. I never intended, of course, it to take my name, never. This was suggested by Dr. Oscar Dlomo, the Minister of Education in KwaZulu. But I was deeply honored, for I knew that this institution would reflect a legacy of investment in education for generations to come. It was a humble beginning with just 50 students, 15. But the value of what we were doing became evident as more and more graduates passed through this institution. My vision to liberate South Africa's youth through education was finally concretized. Now, 42 years later, the Mangosuthu University of Technology continues to equip young South Africans to get jobs, to keep jobs, and to create jobs. The graduates of MUT are taking ownership of building South Africa through their own initiative. They are breaking the bonds of poverty and ignorance and shaping their own future. MUT today is a thriving center of academic excellence, research, and collaboration. MUT graduates are thought leaders, activists, and dynamic citizens. I'm proud of the legacy of this institution. I'm also proud to see a leadership at MUT who understand the need to create partnerships and to collaborate not only with institutions, but throughout the world. When I founded MUT, it was patiently clear to me that South Africa would need to take some giant leaps to catch up with the rest of the world. Having been a pariah of so many years, we had largely been left behind as the world progressed. Now, as we engage the fourth industrial revolution, we need to take care that South Africa will not be left behind again for lack of investment in critical skills such as technology, science, maths, and engineering. In truth, South Africa has enormous potential. Considering all that we have overcome and considering the democratic system we've built on the painful path of oppression and divisions, our people are capable of facing the present challenges with courage, with resilience and creativity. But there is no need for us to face these challenges alone. There is a global network of institutions and organizations who are focused on the same goal of unleashing the potentials of the next generation. We have that example before us, the workers in front of us, who are taking this great walk with us, thanks to the workers. As MU2 taps into that network, I believe that great things will be accomplished. We have enough to inspire us. It is up to us to help tomorrow's students to look beyond the limits of what has been done already and to empower them to take the next step. There is no doubt in my mind that the establishment of a space society at MUT will take that vision to the next level. I hope to see it accomplished within my lifetime, although I'm only 93 years now. I don't know whether that will happen. Thanks very much.
Another virtual round of applause for our founder. We thank our founder for the vision that got us here today. Education is still for liberation. Education continues to be a weapon to liberate many South Africans out of poverty. This is the noble task that our institution, MUT, continues to undertake, giving our students the wings to fly. And we're really proud of taking on that task. Of course, when you take on such an important task, you cannot do it alone. We walk this journey with many partners, but most importantly, we walk with our Chancellor, Miss Lindy Wesisulu, who is our next speaker. We're grateful for her presence here today. We are always proud to have her join us in all our important moments and to truly remind us that we don't walk this journey alone. I've just been informed that she has not connected yet. So without wasting time, I would invite our acting Vice Chancellor, Professor Marcus Ramkhale, who has been at the forefront of walking this journey and setting the necessary vision for the university to follow. Professor Ramkhale, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mufamadi, the program director. Ladies and gentlemen, I am sure you feel as inspired as I am. This is an inspirational event. History is being made in the lifespan of our institution. We've got in this event a remarkable meeting of minds. Professor Walker represents that generation which believed that there is nothing impossible. And so they made that attempt to send the first human beings to the moon. And that dream was achieved. When Neil Armstrong, when he put his left foot on the lunar surface, and he said, it's a small step for man, but a giant leap for mankind. That statement, as we all know, reverberated throughout the world. And it has such huge significance for all of us. Because it says to us that that particular event was not just an event which was important for America, but for the whole world. It was a giant leap in the sense that the curiosity of human beings to know what is beyond was, in a sense, satisfied. That quest for knowledge, something that is very, very unique in the human species. And for me, what is even more interesting is that today we have the first human being in our midst. Fire a laser to the moon. Not the first African American, the first human being to fire that laser to the moon. So this is really an interesting occasion, and I'm sure our students will be truly inspired by this. So Professor Hawker and his team of astronauts represented, that belief that whatever the mind can conceive, it can achieve. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Indeed, that great dream was achieved in 1969. Now, I talked about this remarkable meeting of minds. We also have our founder, who in his own right is also someone of great dreams. He dreamed of expanding knowledge, extending knowledge, disseminating knowledge amongst the African people of South Africa, and started knocking on doors. And the rest, as we know, is history. Umntwana has always believed, he's synonymous with this belief that education liberates. You'll recall that during those days of struggle, he was quite firm that education must come first, education for liberation. And that is the kind of spirit that led him to decide that MUT must be established. So, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, and our students, we have this remarkable coming together today of great dreamers. And it is their dreams that have actually brought us here today, because if this institution had not been established in 1979, we would not be here talking about what is possible. So our students, the message to you is that never stop to dream and never stop to believe in yourself that it is possible. We are very, very excited that we've been blessed by the presence of these great people. Ndabezitha, I'm sure you'll be pleased. You'll be pleased to know that the institution that you founded in 1979 has recently been recognized by the National Research Foundation, the most remarkable progress in terms of its research development. recently received an award from the National Research Foundation, which is called the Acceleration Award. It's a combination of two ways, excellence and acceleration. We recognize the excellence of our research and have recognized the speed in which MUT has made its progress in terms of its research agenda. So
wonderful.
I want to invite you to, we're going to have an event in December to thank our researchers for having taken us to this important landmark. I hope you'll find time in your diary to be with us on that day when we say thank you to our researchers.
Really,
there'll also be someone from the National Research Foundation to make that award to MUT. And I want to extend the same invitation to the hawkers. We'll send you an invitation. If you are able to join us, it will be most pleased. It will be sometime in December, just before Christmas break. And I want to also extend the same invitation to our great friend, our former Consul General in California, Mr. Ndaba. So those invitations are on their way. You'll receive them in a few days. So thank you very much for all the hard work, for all the great vision that has brought us to this important occasion today. And we want to say to our young people in particular, it is now your turn to dream great dreams, and make this strenuous efforts to make sure that your dreams are also achieved. You've got your forebears to look up to use as a role model and to be inspired by their achievements. So thank you very much, and we're very pleased that this International Week has brought us together to celebrate what's happening in our institution. Sibonga kakhulu.
Round of applause. Thank you so much to our Vice Chancellor, Professor Marcus Ramohale, with very inspiring words. Continue to dream and work hard to see your dreams come true. I've just got confirmation that our Chancellor, Ms. Lindy Wesisulu, won't be joining us to this session. I also feel a bit guilty not to allow the audience to ask questions, those who have comments to comment, because we have a very good lineup, and this is probably a once in a lifetime opportunity to interact with our guests, to ask questions, to also comment. So with that, I'm going to open the floor to anyone who has question, comments. Over to you, colleagues. I don't see any hands going once, going twice, sold. Thank you so much to all our guests. Mr. Cyril Ndaba, thank you so much for your presentation earlier on this morning. The Walkers, Professor Walker and Dr. Betty Walker, it's always a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for all your contribution, for sharing your journey. Thank you so much. To our founder, His Royal Highness Prince Buthelezi, it's always special to have you join us in person and virtually. We thank you for the vision that for the establishment of our institution, and we continue to preach your message, education for liberation, because education continues to liberate. Nothing liberates but education. To our Vice Chancellor, Professor Marcus Ramkhale, thank you for the vision. Thank you for setting us on this path. And most importantly, thank you for continuing to inspire us to reach greater heights, for giving us the wings to fly. With those few words, thank you so much. Thank you to the participants. Thank you. We appreciate your presence and your participation in this session. Thank you so much. We're going on a break. Our next session will start at 1 o'clock. It's called International Scholarships Available for South Africans to Study Abroad. Thank you so much. See you then.
Quite interesting.
Oh, so pretty,
Quite interesting.